Compulsions used to ruin my life. Every time I felt so much intense anxiety and fear, I would go to check. And my way was I would spend hours checking online, Googling symptoms of OCD, Googling obsessive intrusive thoughts, and just constantly spending hours doing that. And then that would move on to looking for reassurance. I would ask a family member, why am I having these thoughts? Is this real? To also spending hours upon days ruminating, trying to problem solve these thoughts in my head. And actually, in that moment, I got some relief. Definitely got some momentarily relief, but that relief never lasted. Because compulsions don't disappear when you fight harder or you fight against them. They actually will dissolve naturally when your body feels safe enough to let these behaviours go. Because these behaviours, these check-in behaviours, these compulsive behaviours, they're done in order to try to protect yourself from some internal feeling inside. And once I understood this, everything started to change. Hi, I'm Linda Culleton, and I've helped over 1,000 people gain long-term relief from OCD using natural, profound practices. And in today's video, I'm going to share with you how I finally overcame compulsions after years of trying everything else. First of all, we have to understand why a person does compulsions. Compulsions are only done, they're a behaviour in order to soothe a feeling inside. Because a person doesn't feel okay inside, therefore they do something externally to them in order to ease an emotional inside their body. This keeps the loop going because every time I do something outside myself, I check, I ruminated, I look for reassurance. That built an association that every time I feel this feeling, I go here in order to soothe it. And this is natural because it's a survival response. Because if I know that I get a sense of relief from doing X, Y, and Z, compulsion behaviour, therefore I'm going to do it. Because the feelings are so overwhelming inside, it's just a survival response in order to ease these feelings inside. So for years I thought compulsions were the issue, but actually they were the symptom. They were the symptom of the OCD loop that I was stuck in. So I would have obsessive intrusive thoughts, I would have intense anxiety, I would go to do something outside, the compulsive behaviour, something externally in order to ease that feeling. I'd get some momentary relief, and then I'd be back flooded with anxiety again, and I'd be back in this OCD loop, this loop that keeps going over and over again, because I was trying to change the compulsive behaviour as opposed to changing the underlying root issue, which is the fear response, which is the dysregulation from the nervous system. And the compulsive behaviours, as we keep doing them, the brain signals that I'm only safe when I do this. I'm only safe when I check. I'm only safe when I ruminate. I'm only safe when I ask for reassurance. It builds this association with these behaviours. So as you keep doing the behaviours, the more and more you feel like you have to do these behaviours because they become an automatic response in our system in order to ease an internal feeling. And if this is something you want to change long term, check out the link in the description below. And from my experience, when no amount of trying to change the compulsions worked, because it would move from one compulsive behaviour, deal with that, do exposure around that, and then it would move to something else. When this didn't actually change anything long term, I realised that the key to change in all this was regulating the internal system, was regulating the nervous system. So I kept feeding this cycle, I kept feeding this OCD loop, because I thought that if I could just refrain from doing these compulsive behaviours, then I'd be able to break and changing the emotional response, changing the obsessive intrusive thoughts. But all these compulsive behaviours, they were done automatic. My body was in such a survival state that logic and reasoning didn't have a chance here, because I was doing the compulsive behaviour from a place of complete or fear. And I had to do it in order to ease this sensation in my body. So this is how many people get stuck in this loop. They spend years upon years trying to change compulsive behaviours. And what I notice is that one thing can move to the other. So they may get some relief from doing checking X, and they'll feel confident in themselves. They feel like, yeah, I can overcome this, which is great. but sometimes that X can move to Y, and then they're doing another compulsive behavior because that survival response hasn't been dealt with, it hasn't been treated. So it's still inside the body and it's going to come out in another way. It's going to find another outlet in order to ease this feeling inside, because we're not addressing the underlying issue. We're kind of looking only at the symptoms, trying to change the symptoms, which are the compulsive behaviors. But we're not looking at why are we even doing the compulsions in the first place? Where are they coming from? What is spiking my system inside that makes me want to do something outside myself in order to make me feel better? And this keeps many, many people stuck in trying to change compulsions for years, because they're not dealing with the root of it, which is the nervous system, which is the emotional response in their body. They're trying to change the external. And this is what keeps many people stuck for years. And if you would like to learn how you can actually do this for yourself, you can become empowered. You can learn how to regulate your nervous system. You can learn how to release these repressed emotions. And you can ultimately learn how to be with your emotions and integrate your emotions. Check out the link below. So the next time you have a compulsive urge, instead of tune into your body and just feel into, where do I actually feel this? Where do I feel this in my body? And then ask yourself, can I hold space for this feeling? Can I place my hand on maybe where I feel it? Slow down your breathing, bring awareness to really slow it down and hold space for that. This is obviously takes time to integrate. This takes time to be with. If it's too much, that's okay. Come back another day and see how you go from there. Now that you're aware of how I overcame OCD compulsions, I made a video where I share the 3 secrets of how I defeated OCD. You can check out the video here. I had spent years trying to change obsessive intrusive thoughts. I'd spent years trying to change compulsive behaviors. And I would have got some relief short term, and then I'd be back stuck in the cycle again. And it wasn't until I actually stopped trying to change the obsessive intrusive thoughts, I'd stopped trying to change compulsive behaviors, and I started to actually work on changing my nervous system, on re-regulating and regulating consistently daily my nervous system. Did things start to change? Because the root of it all is a dysregulated nervous system. And through specific breath work that I'd done for OCD, so my internal system started to calm. Okay, it didn't just calm and everything was fine. It was like this. Some days it was very, very heightened, and some days it started to become more and more over time with practice, daily practice. It started to become more and more regulated, more and more balanced. What did that look like? It looked like that while I'd have an intrusive thought, the reaction would become less. It wasn't as intense. I wasn't as scared. Therefore, the need to do the compulsive behavior, whether that's checking externally, asking for reassurance, avoidance, there's many different ways people do things in order to feel better, or mental compulsions, rumination. This started to become less. This was over time. The reason why is that this started to change. The feelings inside started to not feel as intense, and the feelings around intrusive thoughts became less and less intense, less scary. Therefore, my need to do something to soothe a feeling inside myself started coming down. Therefore, all the need for compulsive behaviours started to eventually dissolve organically, naturally. Understand that this is a process, this is over time. When we do a behaviour over and over again, like consistently, many times a day, it's done first from a place of fear. Okay, I feel fear inside myself and I'm going to do something to ease that feeling. That's fine. It's all done like a survival response. It's all a strategy in order to cope. So it's all good when we're in that position. We need to do that. Okay, this is not about resisting all that at the moment. But what I noticed is that when I started doing all this breath work, some compulsions were there due to habits. So when we keep doing something over and over again, repeat it over and over again, multiple times a day, we will do it and we won't even be conscious we're doing it. It's like an unconscious habit that's been created from something that first was established through fear. So there is an element that we can look at around exposure later on to break some of these habitual patterns of compulsive behavior, of just behavior in general. But first and foremost is to stop looking at trying to change compulsions and obsessive intrusive thoughts, and look at how can I bring a sense of safety inside my body? How can I start feeling okay inside? When we start feeling okay inside through regulating the nervous system, this is not just, I'm going to just think myself, okay, I'm going to think myself that I'm fine. That's not going to happen, okay? We have to do something deep, deep, deep into the nervous system, breath work daily that regulates this over time. We have to understand that our nervous system has been in this default state for years. It's just been in this chronic state of activation for so long. So it's going to take a deep practice. It's going to take time. It's going to take dedication. But once you start doing this daily over time, you're going to notice that the feelings inside, it's like, oh, the thoughts don't really bother me as much. Some days they're challenging, some days not. And that just gets better and better. The obsessive nature around the thoughts start to become less because the emotional response is changing. And we don't do this through trying to think away there. We do this by actually changing the emotional response through consistently bringing the nervous system back into a state of regulation. So it goes into default, into chronic activation, stress. By doing the breath, we bring it back to regulation, and it flips back and forth, constantly back and forth. With over time, the idea is that we won't be in this chronic state so often, that we'll be able to bounce back into the regulated state more often and stay in that. The need to do all these behaviors will eventually just fade away because my system doesn't need to find something in order to feel better inside, in order to soothe myself. It's all coming from a self-soothing with behavior strategy. We're doing things in order to feel okay inside. That's it. That's the root of all that. Why am I doing something to feel okay inside? Because I don't feel okay inside. Okay, how do I address that I don't feel okay inside? We go directly to the nervous system and bring a sense of balance back into the body and mind, which are intimately connected. If my body starts feeling more calm, my mind's going to also feel more calm. That's how it works. It's not just we work on one another. We work with both together. And this is how we merge the body and mind to become into a state of balance. So the compulsive behaviors, we don't need to spend months working on one compulsive behavior and then months working on another and months working on another. Because it can move. It can move around to many different behaviors. Our body will find a way to find relief. So that's why we don't need to spend all the time. We can actually work directly with what's going on inside, and everything else will start to dissolve over time and practice. If we're not able to manage our emotions, we're still avoiding our feelings. So a big part of this is emotional integration. When I done compulsive behaviours, I was doing them because I was terrified of my feelings. I didn't know how to feel all these emotions, and there was a flood of emotions, and they were really big. They were really overwhelming, and they completely flooded my whole system, like fear, guilt, shame. I wanted to feel them. I didn't know how. So when I'm in a survival state, I don't have capacity to be with emotions. I'm just thinking of how can I get rid of this feeling? How can I survive? Like, what do I need to do in order to feel okay? That's where it's at. You don't have the capacity to be with the shame, the guilt, the emotional response inside. But when we bring in the breath work and we do the breath work daily, we then start to look at how can I be with these emotions throughout the day when they show up? Because when we have a tool to use like breath work, and we're doing it every day, which is amazing, and you start seeing amazing changes in how you feel and how you behave. But throughout the day, if you're feeling any kind of emotion, we have to learn how to have a relationship with our emotions. This is completely foreign. It was completely foreign to me, and it's most likely completely foreign to you if you're suffering with symptoms of OCD, because you're terrified of your feelings. So once that feeling of being terrified of our feelings starts to come down with the breath work, the feelings are no longer so big. Sometimes they can be, but they're no longer daily as active. Therefore, we're going to then create a relationship with our emotions. How do I learn how to be with my emotions? When you start doing this, and whenever I've started doing this over time, things start to change. Is it easy? No, it's like learning a completely new language. It's learning how to be with your emotions that you didn't know how to be with. And when I brought in a specific practice of trauma release, it started as also to release that repressed energy around emotions that were repressed. So it's not so much about going back into our past stories and trying to figure everything out with our logic mind. It's actually releasing repressed energy, repressed emotion that is withheld in the body. And as we start releasing that over time, it's a very therapeutic practice. It's very, comfortable, and we take it very slow. What happens also is that the emotional response with the breath work does not be as active. It doesn't be as heightened. Therefore, I'm able to have some space in order to be with guilt in my body, a feeling of guilt, in order to be with a feeling of shame. I'm able to do that from a different perspective, because I'm able to understand that's the feeling of guilt in my body. Can I hold space for that? Am I able to be with that? When I'm in survival, I can't. I don't even have the capacity to think about, can I be with this? I'm just like, I need to get rid of this. I need to just try to run away from it. That's what we do. That's compulsive behaviours. I want to run away from all these feelings by doing something outside myself. But when we do all the practices like trauma release, what I realised was that we're able to then go to the emotions and integrate the emotions that need to be held and felt, and slowly feeling these emotions, understanding the very vulnerable aspects of ourselves. They're not scary monsters. They can feel scary. I get it. I've experienced all this, so I understand. But when you come to that point, which is way down a program, we don't go there straight away. We bring in regulation first, then we try to see if we can slowly be with your emotions. Not from a place of want to get rid of you, from a place of how can I just hold you here for even a few moments and breathe. And as we keep doing this, the whole thing will start to feel more regulated, integrated. I very much understand that I love empowering people with tools for life. Okay, breath work, somatic practices, amazing, absolutely life transformational, okay? But if we're still not able to be with our emotions on a day-to-day basis, we're kind of still like going around about the way, but not actually dealing with what needs to be looked at as well. So this is really about, how do I be with my emotions on a daily basis? When they show up, I could be in the supermarket, I could be out meeting friends. Can I regulate myself in that moment where I'm not feeling like I need to go and do my breath work, I need to get home really quick, that I'm able to manage? That's feeling of shame there. I can hold that space for that shame. That's a feeling of guilt there. I can hold that space for guilt. This is obviously in time. This is in a program. This is in a 6-month program that brings you step by step to that place. It's not initially, but this is the kind of the roadmap that we go on in order to integrate all emotional aspects of ourselves. Doesn't mean there's ever a time where we're like, oh, I'm fully there now and I never have to deal with any emotions. It's not the case. But I am coming from a different perspective. I'm coming from a place of the adult now, and I can hold space for these vulnerable aspects of myself. And when we start doing that, not doing it, but actually it's a life thing, we feel so much empowered, and we feel like we're not victim to our emotions. We're actually empowered in order to manage our emotional state, and everything feels much better in time with this.